What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Hype episode. Today we're going to be continuing the hype breakdown series that we've been doing on YouTube, where we spin a wheel and whatever team it lands on this wheel, we will be discussing them for the entire video. So basically the way that this is working is, for those of you that are, let's say, the Wizards or maybe the Grizzlies or the Cavs or the Chicago Bulls, where you don't see a whole lot of fandom pages and everything like that for those teams and don't see a whole lot of YouTube content for them, this is your opportunity to get an entire video based around that. So if you do enjoy this content, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on what team you want to see next, as well as your comments for this specific team that we're about to spin right here. So without further ado, let's get into this. So if you haven't seen the other episodes, we did the Pacers in the last one, we've done the Spurs, and we've done the Hawks. Now this is episode 4, so we're going to spin this wheel, see what it lands on, and the team that we'll be discussing is the Dallas Mavericks, an interesting team. So let me go get all this information, I'll bring it right back to you guys. Alright, so here we have the Dallas Mavericks depth chart. Before we get into their depth chart, let's take a look at where they stood last year. Now, of course, they were the 5th seed. They were 50-32, and they made it all the way to the NBA Finals before losing to the Boston Celtics. Now, what I will say is this is kind of typical for Dallas to be kind of in the middle of the pack during the playoffs or during the regular season, and then make a push in the playoffs. And, whether or not that helps or hurts kind of is up to your interpretation, of course. Now, this is the first year that a Luka-ran Mavericks team has been to the finals. So we're going to pull up this roster here. Now, there are a few returning faces, as we see Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, Maxi Kleber was there last year on this roster, Dante Exum as well, Jaden Hardy even. So a lot of this roster is returning. The problem that I see with this roster is a few of the pieces that left. Derek Jones Jr. was one of your best defensive players, your most versatile Swiss Army knife player, and you let him walk. I understand you brought in Klay Thompson, right? The idea behind bringing in someone like Klay Thompson is you have to hope that he's not washed. If he's washed, this roster is starting to crumble, if that makes sense. They brought him in, and they're hoping that his three-point shooting is still there, even though he went 0 for 10 for shooting in his last game as Golden State Warrior, that he's healthier as he came off of his hurt legs there, and that he can play defense to the level that he was able to play. Because if he is 80% of what he was in Golden State, the Dallas Mavericks could be extremely dangerous. You don't need him to be some off the dribble shooter. You need a catch and shoot shooter, and that's what he can be. He's the kind of guy that scored 60 points in 3 quarters on 11 dribbles. So he doesn't need to dribble the ball. Now, what I do like about this roster is they have depth in the power forward and center position. PJ Washington, Maxi Kleber, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively here. Those 4, and with Derek Lively, how he flourished all the way up to the NBA Finals, I could see him being a Tyson Chandler-esque kind of center in our league, where he's going to be focusing on the defense, even like DeAndre Jordan-esque, focusing on the defensive side, and then on the offensive side of the ball, he'll be there to catch lobs and rebound. And that's exactly what he's done, and he's done his role pretty well to this point. He's a young dude that he can be a part of the, let's say, top 25, under 25 area, if you do put him there, but there's obviously a lot of good names, and his productivity is going to be a lot that's not shown on the stat sheet kind of thing. Same thing with Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford had a run there where he did not miss. Now, a lot of that was because he was catching lobs, and when you have 2 guys this is the idea I brought up about the 76ers, when you have 2 guys that they can do very similar things, one coming off the bench, one starting, that's very good because your offense doesn't need to adjust too much, and you can mix and match players as those guys get injured throughout the year or something like that. Now, yeah, Dallas Mavericks right now are going all in. They're saying, Klay, we're bringing you in. We know that you are a Golden State Warrior for life. We know you chose a whack number in 31 that no one ever wears. We're hoping that you're not the i.e. the wash guy that finishes his career in another jersey, i.e. like Dwayne Wade when he played for the Cavs or when he was on the Bulls for a season, Rajon Rondo towards the end of his career. You got guys like Michael Jordan when he finished his career with the Washington Wizards. You know, not saying that those guys were washed per se, but their productivity was way different than what we were used to. And they probably should have just stayed with their prior team to finish out their career as lifers of those rosters. Same thing with like Maxi Kleber. The Dallas Mavericks are banking on the fact that his shoulders will be okay, that he'll be healthy. Someone like Spencer Dinwiddie, they are also banking on the fact that he can shoot the ball better than he did last year. He was terrible last year. He was so bad. And ideally he fits really well alongside someone like Luka because he's a 6'6" guard who can defend really well. The problem is offensively he doesn't give you too much. So that's why bringing him off the bench kind of works, because you can bring him in and plug and play, have Kyrie go, he takes a few minutes off the bench. And then, when Luka needs to be subbed out for those few minutes, Spencer Dinwiddie can plug in and you still have the offensive there. Now, the problem will be when you take him out and Kyrie out at the same time, and you have Spencer Dinwiddie and like Dante Exum, both not super offensively gifted players. I did like what I saw last year out of Dante Exum. Definitely gave his career a bit of a revival. He is someone that can definitely flourish in a role like this where there's no expectation for him to perform well. It's the spot minutes here and there that he'll be just battling for that second string, as you see that there's kind of an opening in that backup shooting guard or point guard spot between him and Quentin Grimes. Now, Najee Marshall is another interesting flexibility player that they have. I'm worried because they gave up Derrick Jones Jr., that Swiss Army knife defender, and they also lost out on guys like Josh Green, who didn't play poorly in the NBA Finals, just hasn't had the opportunity to really flourish by two ball-dominant players in Kyrie and Luka, so he was seen as more of just a catch-and-shoot player. I think him out in Charlotte, you're going to see a little bit of more of a transition game because he'll have the opportunity to have the ball in his hands a little more. And then, Tim Hardaway Jr. is another guy that they lost out on. He went over to Detroit. I understand losing out on him. I don't really think he wasn't doing too much for you. Was only in the finals when it was, scrub time. And he ended up hitting a crazy amount of threes in a blowout. I'm not really sweating that one. But yeah, let's talk about their offense and defensive ranking here. Last year, offensive rating is a 9th overall. I think that's pretty solid. Defensive rating, 18th. That's where you're hoping and you're banking that Derek Lively takes a step and helps you defensively. And Klay Thompson also is back to his prior defending self. Now, that three-point shooting should improve, too, from 13th because you did bring in a guy like Klay Thompson. And then you lost a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr., who is he pulled the trigger pretty fast. So now let's talk about where they should fall this year. As rosters here, like the Clippers, are probably not going to be a 4 seed. I see that the Dallas Mavericks are probably going to be competing with these three right here, Minnesota, Denver, and Oklahoma City, for that top spot in the West. With the injury history and rest history of the Mavericks, I could definitely see them being around the same spot that they are currently at that 5 seed. But I don't think that they're outside of the realm of running it back for another finals run, just as this roster is good enough to help out Luka, but also give Luka what he needs in just helping spacing the floor, because they do have a bit of flexibility in, like, let's say Maxi Kleber's healthy, PJ Washington just not cutting it as like a spot-up shooter. Then you bring in Maxi Kleber, and then you're running a big man who can rebound the ball for you, as well as shooter, Kyrie, and Luka. So this team has all the utilities to be back in the finals that they did last year. Whether they'll execute that, that's a question mark to be seen. I think that this team, if they're not performing to the level and if Clay's not doing it, you could see them being a little bit active on that trade deadline area so that they go pick up someone like a Jeremy Grant-esque, where they give up PJ Washington and one of these younger players in like Jaden Hardy, for example. That Jaden Hardy is someone that I think needs a new destination. There's just no minutes for him. As they're trying to win now, there is no time to develop. They're looking at let's win, 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 win. There's no time to get you on the court and get you to make those mistakes. We don't want mistakes right now. We want guys that are win, win, win mold right now. So, all right, guys, I do expect them to be in the top 4, if not that top 5 area. I don't think that they're going to be a play-in threat or anything like that. Luka and Kyrie are too good to allow that. So, all right, well, if you've enjoyed this episode of the Hype Breakdown episode with the Dallas Mavericks, do me a huge favor, like and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 12,000 subscribers. So with that being said, it's been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.